Now, so see, let me tell you certain things. First, when we read polity, most of the students start by reading Charter Act, Act. So those are very factual. So once you start say 5-10 pages of the book, it becomes boring. Okay. So that is the reason why we have to understand why constitution is there, what is the necessity of the constitution. So the whole, why the idea of constitution evolved. Okay. So now first, what is constitution? Is it your Lakshmikant book? No. But it is a book. But why did we create that book? That we'll discuss. Okay. So what is constitution? What is your understanding of constitution? In TV debates, etc., you might be saying that there is no one above law, right? What is the meaning of that? That means everyone is treated equally before law. But where how the legislators create law? They look at the constitution. From that only they create the law. Okay. So basically, okay. Now, first of all, it is a rule book to govern the nation. Okay. So that is the first definition of constitution. But it is also a friend, philosopher and guide for who? Does it help the citizens? Yes. Does it help the legislators? Yes. Does it help the courts? Yes. How? Let's understand. How does it help the citizens? Democracy is of the people, by the people, for the people. To preserve democracy and safeguard democracy, we have created a rule-based governance model. And to ensure that rule-based governance model stands the test of time, we have created the constitution, right? So how does it help the citizens? From constitution, a citizen can know what are his rights. Okay. It talks about, most importantly, rights and duties of a citizen, isn't it? Fundamental rights हम जिसे कहते हैं, which cannot be taken away by any authority in the state. ठीक है? If the authority, say for example, lawmakers, they take away your fundamental rights, what you can do? How you can enforce your fundamental rights? You can directly go to High Court or Supreme Court. Okay, we'll discuss that. Whenever your fundamental right is violated, suppose you are living in a particular area, जहाँ पे there is a river. Okay, so for example, a particular person is living in a village, and the whole village is dependent on a particular river. Okay, and suddenly there is a chemical factory which is pushing dangerous or hazardous chemical waste into the river. Can you take up this issue and go to Supreme Court directly? Yes. How? Right to healthy environment is part of our right to life. So this is a fundamental rights violation. Understood? Right to water, right to air, right to healthy environment broadly. So yes, we'll discuss about that more. Okay. Fundamental rights and fundamental duties. So citizens are aware that what are my rights and what I can ask or where I can hold the government accountable. Now, how does it is a friend, philosopher and guide for a legislator? All our law, जितने सारे law बनते हैं, okay, all of them, what they do? They create law to enact some part of the constitution. ठीक है? So the legislators make laws in accordance with constitution. इसके बारे में पढ़ेंगे. Most importantly, there is something called DPSP, Directive Principles of State Policy. Constitution में एक chapter है where the constitution is saying it's kind of a directive to the legislators कि ऐसे law बनाओ. This is kind of state we want. ठीक है? So it is known as DPSP, and to enable that we do create law. अभी यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड का डिबेट चल रहा है. Why we are debating that? Because in constitution it is mentioned, article 44 में कि the state should endeavor to create a uniform civil code. That is the reason why the whole debate is going on. ठीक है? And that is part of DPSP, as I told you. DPSP is Directive Principles of State Policy. It is telling the government what to do, legislators, and accordingly they create law. So every law, rule or regulation that is created by the legislators has to test the constitutional ethics or constitutional guidance. If they violate any of the constitutional principles, what will happen? They can be struck down. By who? Again, Supreme Court or High Court. Okay. Now, it is also a friend and philosopher and guide to the courts as well. How? Whenever a judge is, deciding upon certain things, what they look upon? If they want to verify a particular law, whether it is, it is in accordance with the constitutional goals, principles or not, where they look to? Constitution. So the courts, specifically our high courts and supreme courts, they are the interpreter of constitution. Interpreter of constitution. They interpret. High court and supreme court, not the sessions court or say district level jo court hai, no. If it is a constitutional matter, constitutional debate, then it will either go to the high court or supreme court. They are the authorities. Okay. Done. Understood. So it is a friend, philosopher and guide to all of us, to our citizens, to the legislators, to the judges also. Okay. Now, next part. Most of the students, they think that, constitution is just a thing. No. If you look at constitution, it has a very interesting time dimension. How? Because, say, constitution is guardian of our past. How can we say that it is a guardian of our past? Yes, it tries to preserve our cultural heritage, our, ethical heritage. Okay, so it is a guardian of our past, no doubt about it. It guides our present, all the law, rules, regulations, जितने सारे हम कर रहे हैं, it is informed by our constitution, ठीक है, and it shapes our future. There is an idea that, see, whenever there exist two states. What are they? One is ideal state that we want to achieve as an individual, as a state, as a nation, as a country, as a group of people, as a civilization. ठीक है, ideal. And then there is real world. When we got independence, do you know what was the literacy rate of India? 13%. Poverty? Don't ask. Okay. So the real state of affairs was very low. Low standard of living, literacy was very low. Okay. We are a poor society, poor nation. At the same time, very illiterate as well. Okay. So human development was not there. So what we wanted to achieve in future an ideal state where everyone is developed. Okay. The indicators, social indicators, political indicators, education indicators, economic indicators are good. People's per capita income is good. Their social indicators, for example, health ho gaya, education ho gaya, all those things are good or better. So it is our aspiration. And when we say aspiration, what it is about? It is our future, isn't it? Aspiration is future. So our constitution is not only talking about preserving our past or guiding our past or past heritage, जो भी heritage है, it also guides our present so that we can aspire to be an ideal state. ठीक है, understood? The real state of affairs जो भी है, अभी भी poverty है. In Odisha, recently, if you look at the data, 15% poverty is there. That has to be reduced. ठीक है. So from a real state to an ideal state. So it is a aspiration. Okay, so that's how it shapes our future. Understood? Okay. Now, it is rooted in our ancient heritage. We are drawing upon the ancient heritage. We had, say, if you look at ancient India, we had democratic governance where women were allowed to participate also. Okay, ancient India में था ऐसा. We had Mahajanapadha's time. We had, democratic elements over there. Okay. So it is rooted in our ancient heritage, created for a modern state. When we got independence, we wanted to create a modern state. Okay. And it is shaping our future. So this statement, keep that as part of your note. Whenever you are writing a polity answer, write this way. Okay. Understood? The time dimension. That means it is informed by our past, guiding us in our present state of affairs or condition, and tells us what to do in our future. So it has a complete time dimension. So that is the reason why Constitution is not a अभी 1947-49 या 1950 में लिखा गया था. Is it a dead document? No, because society do evolve, and so with that the Constitution also is evolving. So it is a living document. Although it is a document, it is a living document. How? It is a living document. We are bringing amendments, creating changes. ठीक है? So that's why. Understood? No. Is it a political document? Can we say is it a political document? Does it give any political philosophy? Yes, it talks about democracy, it talks about secularism, it talks about some welfare state, so many things. So it is a political, it has a political philosophy. So we can say it is a political document. Is it a social document? Huh? Is it a social document? Pluralism, it talks about fraternity, brotherhood, multicultural society, it talks about composite culture. ठीक है, एग्जाम्पल दे दो यहाँ पे. It talks about composite culture. ठीक है, pluralism, etc. Many other things are there. We'll discuss that. Political philosophy में it talks about democracy. Democracy is a what? Is an invention. We created it. It is a mode of governance. That's it. ठीक है? Democracy, secularism, so many things. Welfareism. These things are social aspects. So it is a social document as well. ठीक है? So political, social हो गया. Then have I told you about spelt approach? Whenever you look at a question, society या economy का question हो गया. Spelt approach. Society, you will think of it from a societal perspective, political perspective, educational, environmental, ethical perspective, legal perspective, technological perspective. So we are doing that. It is a political document, social document. Is it an economic document? Huh? How? Does it give us any economic philosophy? Yes, it is. What is the economic philosophy of our constitution? It talks about if we want to develop, the development has to be socialistic pattern of society. इसमें क्या है? This is the economic philosophy. See, communism, socialism, capitalism, these are economic philosophies. Okay. Now, when we talk about socialistic pattern of society, it is not socialism. In fact, if you broadly, we can call it welfareism. Welfareism. Apart from that, there is another example. It also talks about what? Prevention of concentration of wealth. That's economic philosophy. That also you can give an example. ये सब आर्टिकल पढ़ेंगे हम, but I am just giving you whole idea. Prevention of concentration of wealth. और इकोनॉमी में क्या है? What else we aspire in our economy? Development. That is the whole goal of economy, isn't it? Now, if you look at the developmental aspect, it talks about agricultural development. It talks about cottage industry development. ये सब पढ़ेंगे हम, ठीक है? That means, more or less, it is an economic document as well. Understood? Now, so political हो गया, social हो गया, economic हो गया, और क्या है? What else we can talk about? Is it an ethical document? Yes. If there is even if today, if there is a fight between a religious ethics versus constitutional ethics, who will win? Constitutional ethics, always. Okay. So, it is a ethical document. What are the ethical philosophy it talks about? Does it talk about any philosophy? Equality, yes, or justice. That's a ethical philosophy. Most importantly, accountability. The word that we very much use in ethics, accountability. How it makes, our institutions accountable? By going for separation of power. If our elected government is doing something wrong, the judges or the Supreme Court or the High Courts can question them. Accountability. और क्या है accountability? How it is, making us accountable. अभी क्या आ रहा है? इलेक्शन आ रहा है. इलेक्शन क्या है? It is a test of accountability. Why? If the government has done well or not, whether the people approve the government or not, it is tested through election. the epicenter of democracy is election. Not only election, election तो हर जगह होता है, पाकिस्तान में होता है, बांग्लादेश में होता है, so many countries फेक इलेक्शन भी करते हैं for the show बाजी के लिए. But election, if we are talking about election, the election should be what? First, regular. ऐसा नहीं कि in 30 years once. No, regular every 5 years first. So it talks about accountability and how it makes us accountable. I am telling you. Okay, election हो गया, right? And when we talk about election, it should be 3 things: regular, free, and fair. Understood? That means there should not be any booth capture, there should not be any election manipulation. ठीक है? If regular and free and fair election नहीं है, then we cannot call it democracy. By the people, for the people का कुछ meaning नहीं है. So election is a mode how the political accountability of the elected government is tested. Similarly, the government is also takes tax from the people, isn't it? How do you hold the people, government accountable कि हमारा पैसा ले गए, क्या कर रहे हो उस पैसे का? How do we do that? हाँ, स्कीम तो से बाद में आएंगे, ठीक है. How do you do that? We have institution. If you become a civil servant tomorrow, you will have some discretion to some funding will be there. Funds will come to your office. You have to distribute that fund in और जो भी development करना है करोगे. But there should be someone who will will see कि आप सही कर रहे हो, गलत कर रहे हो. That is known as fiscal accountability. Suppose your father sending you 20,000 rupees और आप यहाँ मूवी देख रहे हो बैठ के, तो how he will ensure कि fiscal accountability है कि नहीं? He will send someone surprise visit. Same thing we do. यहाँ पे surprise नहीं है. We have created institutions, for example, CAG, Comptroller and Auditor General of India. That's a completely autonomous institution. Nobody can touch them, and they do the auditing. If they see that कि scheme में इतने सारे they come up with their report and see कि whether the government has exhibited fiscal prudence or not. ठीक है? So CAG is there. They maintain fiscal accountability, whereas election political accountability. So accountability is there. So it's an ethical document as well. Apart from equality, justice, it is also talking about accountability, transparency. All those things are there. ठीक है? It is in fact, if you broadly look at all the philosophy of constitution, it is a good governance model, and good governance is part of ethics. So it is an ethical document as well. Fine. और क्या है? So is it a cultural? Does it have a cultural philosophy? See, India is not a India is a very interesting nation, in the sense that India is an ancient civilization, but a modern state. We are a very ancient civilization, but if you look at the nation itself, we are a very modern state. What is the meaning of it? That means we have deeper civilizational roots or ethics. ठीक है? And our constitution does ask our citizens to preserve our cultural heritage, cultural composite culture. ठीक है? जो भी whatever the things that we value in our as part of our civilizational and cultural heritage, constitution tries to protect them. ठीक है? Done. So it is a cultural document as well. Apart from that, और क्या है? Ethics हो गया, society हो गया, polity हो गया, economy हो गया. In society also you can write about one of the part of society is education, and right to education is part of that. It's a fundamental right. We'll discuss that anyway. Apart from that, is it an environmental document? Does it give any environmental philosophy? Hey, क्या है? Well, the environment. Yes. Okay. See, environmental philosophy talks about preserving our not only cultural heritage but also natural heritage. See, if you look at Gangetic culture, that culture is developed because there is a river. If you take away the river, look how that culture will disappear. So from a natural heritage, we have developed a cultural heritage. So it talks about preserving our natural heritage. many articles as we go on discussing, we'll categorize them. So it is a wholesome document that touches every aspects of an Indian's life, not only Indians, okay, not only a common man but also legislators, judges, etc. So it touches everyone's life equally. Okay. Now, if you look at say economic philosophy, what is the government is doing nowadays? Government is taking say prevention. They are trying to prevent concentration of wealth. And if you look at economic model of India, that is what kind of model? It is a mixed model. Okay. And in mixed model, what we are doing? Private sector is there, public sector is there. Government is capitalistic model mostly. Government is taxing the rich, no doubt about it, taking that money and giving it to poor through schemes. So government is nothing but modern day Robin Hood, isn't it? Government is nothing but modern day Robin Hood, but in a legalized form. Robin Hood, he used to do, illegal things. But government taxing the rich, taking from the rich and giving it to the poor, taking care of the vulnerable sections of the society. So modern day Robin Hood. Okay. Then does it talk about say religion and and science? It does. It asks our people to develop scientific temper. What is scientific temper? Religion and science का हमेशा डिबेट चलता रहता है. What is scientific temper? That is, whatever you believe in, that should be fact based, reason based, logic based. ठीक है. So that debate is also there, and many of the issues that comes before Supreme Court has religious versus religious ethics versus constitutional ethics. वो debate चलता रहता है. Whether हाँ that is there. Okay. Scientific temper, lack of scientific temper will result in that. Okay. It is very easy to blind give a there was a very interesting story between Tagore and Gandhi. Okay. There will be a earthquake, I think, in Bihar, and some people will die. Okay. Gandhi will say that this is an act of God because for so long, our society has untouchability. We have committed a sin as a group of people by because there is untouchability, and that is the reason why God punished us through earthquake. Okay. Tagore will get furious. He will say, for a man of your stature, if you give this kind of statements where maximum number of people are illiterate, they will swallow it and they will believe it. That is not the truth. That is not why earthquake happened. God is not punishing over there. It's plate movement. So very interesting debate is there. Gandhi was a very deeply religious man. Okay? But sometimes this kind of statement when he gave, Tagore used to counter him. Then Gandhi will say, "Arey, sahi tha." So interesting debates are there between Tagore and Gandhi. Okay, we'll discuss that. Done? Okay. Now, so it is a wholesome document that as we understood. First, what is constitution? We understood. क्या क्या है उसमें, क्या है क्या नहीं, understood. Now, why we created a constitution? What is the necessity of it? Can we have democracy without having a constitution? If you look at much of the world, पहले तो prior to democracy we had monarchical system. From monarchy only we came to democracy, isn't it? So democracy is a human invention. We have created it, isn't it? So it was a form of government only. But is it necessary to have a constitution for a democracy to function smoothly? Yes, no. Yes, okay. Now, UK, can we call it democracy? Yes, it is a democracy. Very surprised. USA, the oldest one to write a constitution. USA. Now, UK में कोई constitution लिखा, there is no written constitution. In USA there is a written constitution. जापान में written constitution है. India, such a vast, big, written constitution. Why? See, we can have democracy, but the democratic principles not necessarily will be, safeguarded. How it will not be safeguarded? Let me give you an example. If you see the rise of Hitler, Hitler was elected by their people. It was a democratic government. He was elected by the people. Then he prosecuted and wanted and committed the biggest genocide man has ever seen. How is that possible? So democracy is susceptible or vulnerable to autocracy. Autocracy means tyranny of the elected. Suppose we have a prime minister now and the government is there. Okay. Tomorrow they will pass a law saying that we don't need Supreme Court and High Court. Khatam. They can do that. They can pass a law. तब क्या होगा? Democracy will become autocracy. One party system. There will be no challenger, no nothing. Then what will happen? Whatever they want, they will impose it. Just Hitler did it. Right? Similarly, so democracy is a very vulnerable system. Very, very vulnerable to autocracy. And when once, group of people are elected, once they tested the power, they want to stay over there. That is the reason why if you look at states like Myanmar, so many other states, same military is ruling over there or some, group of people only ruling over there. Okay. So democracy is extremely vulnerable. Now, why UK didn't have a written constitution? Because this group of people, while they colonized, and and suppressed the rights of people in their colonies, the same group of people, same legislators were very liberal towards their own group of people. This group of people, Britishers, they wanted to sell opium to the whole world, but not to British people. They fought with China to control the opium, so that whole world can but they never promoted these things in their own home. Understood? So the same group of people who gave all the rights to its own citizen subjugated others, subjugated the Americans, subjugated Indians and others. That is the reason why, because we fought against subjugation and because our rights were suppressed, okay, by the same group of people who gave all the rights to their group of people or own people. That is the reason why, to avoid any kind of autocratic tendency or tyrannical tendency, we wrote a detailed constitution, so that if there is a fight, at least there is a book or there is a constitution where we can fall upon and it can guide us in cases of conflict. ठीक है? यूके में जरूरत ही नहीं था. In UK, the legislators, their MPs are most powerful, more powerful than their judges. Their parliament is sovereign. Nobody can question them. Our parliament is not sovereign. क्यों? Because our Supreme Court and High Court can question them. Parliament का काम क्या है? Law बनाना. And they can be questioned before Supreme Court and High Court through judicial review. ठीक है? If the Supreme Court and High Court judges see that a particular law is not in accordance with constitutional principles, they will struck it down. They have done it many times. Okay. Same goes for USA also. Okay. Separation of power completely. Why they, this, see, because democracy is vulnerable to autocracy, so separation of power is most important to safeguard democracy. We have read who was a master of separation of power in medieval India, Shivaji ke time. Shivaji himself, he had 240 forts. What he used to do? In each fort, he used to employ 3 people of equal rank. Understood? One person, if it is there, he can do the जो मनमर्जी करेगा. If there are 3 people are employed, क्या होगा? So there will be democratic element. So that is a check and balance. That is the reason why separation of power is a fundamental to safeguard democracy. We'll discuss that in more. Okay. Shivaji was the master of deploying these tactics, checks and balances. Okay. Anyway. Now, these things you can write. First, to say, see, our independence was, very hard-earned independence. We fought a lot. Okay. To safeguard the values we fought for during independent struggle, we fought for right to vote, and suddenly we, once we came to power, vote ki zarurat hai, we are in power, we'll stay in power. Okay. So write this down. To safeguard the rights of individual. Who is the most vulnerable? It is the common man, isn't it? That's why we need the constitution. To safeguard democracy. Obviously, democracy is not. See, there is a very interesting saying. Okay, I forgot the author's name. He says that democracy is not the perfect form of government, but there is no better system than democracy. Understood? We cannot invent anything better than democracy, so that where everybody can have their own voice. So it's not a perfect one, but the best one. Then to act as a bulwark against tyrannical tendency. Once people get power, they try to cling to it. That's why it acts as a bulwark against tyrannical tendency of the elected. To provide basic philosophy. Does it talk about philosophy? We talked about now political, social, economic, environmental, ethical, so many philosophies. And how to shape our future. So it is a futuristic document. It is an aspirational document as well. What as a nation we want to achieve. Okay. It also created institutions, and as I told you, what is the most important for democracy? Election first. Second, separation of power. If there is right checks and balances, democracy will be safeguarded. So, it embodies the idea of separation of power. Okay. Apart from that, to enable dispute resolution, because we have states and center, citizen and state, or citizen versus center. So, there might be cases. So, how do you go ahead and solve these disputes? Through Supreme Court. If it is a federal matter, it will directly go to Supreme Court. Okay. If two states are fighting, citizen versus state, state versus state, do Tamil Nadu versus Karnataka, do they fight? Yes. For what? Kaveri River? Case hai Supreme Court mein. State versus nation means, say Odisha government fighting against a particular say Delhi government, fighting a directive from the central government. State versus nation. So it gives a framework, broad philosophy and framework to. Disputes will be there, conflict will be there. How do we resolve them? Most importantly, peacefully. ऐसा नहीं कि दिल्ली का चीफ मिनिस्टर गन लेके चला गया. Let's resolve the conflict now. Right? That is one form of resolution. Throughout history, if you see how they used to, if there is a conflict, how they used to resolve it. Through brute force, physical force. We try to avoid that. So that's why Constitution is there. So that there is a peaceful conflict resolution. That is most important. Okay. If two kings used to have dispute, how they used to resolve? War, fight, brute force, physical force. Now, because we want a democracy, it creates a mechanism where we can go for peaceful dispute resolution. Understood? Excellent. Now,